In the dim glow of a single lamp, Elena stood frozen in the doorway of their bedroom, the air thick with the scent of cheap perfume and betrayal. 20 years of shared mornings, whispered promises, and the quiet rhythm of a life built brick by fragile brick, gone in an instant. There he was, her husband Mark, tangled in the sheets with a stranger whose laughter still echoed like shattered glass. The woman's eyes met Elena's, not with shame, but with a smug flicker of triumph, as if she'd won a prize Elena had foolishly guarded. Mark didn't even turn his head at first, lost in the throes, until the floorboard creaked under Elena's trembling foot. Only then did he bolt upright, his face crumpling into a mask of horror. "Elena, God, no, it's not." But the words dissolved as she backed away, the wedding band on her finger burning like a brand. She fled into the night, the humiliation carving into her soul like acid. How could he? After everything, the miscarriages they'd endured, the promotions she'd sacrificed, the vows etched in blood and tears. In that moment, as rain lashed her skin, Elena's grief ignited into something darker, a vow of her own. Revenge. Not swift, not merciful. A slow poison that would consume them all. Elena's world unraveled like a thread pulled too tight, but she didn't cry. Not anymore. The divorce papers arrived a week later, crisp and impersonal, delivered by a courier who avoided her eyes. Mark had already packed his things, leaving behind the faint echo of his cologne on the curtains, a ghost that mocked her every breath. She signed them in the lawyer's office, her hand steady, her heart a furnace of rage. "He wants half the house," the attorney said, glancing at her sympathetically. "Half? After he'd soiled their bed with that horse scent?" Elena smiled thinly, the first crack in her facade. "Let him have it. I'll burn it down myself if I have to." The stranger, Lila, she learned from the tabloid gossip that spread like wildfire through their small town, had been a barista at the corner cafe, all wide-eyed innocence and fleeting touches. Elena stalked her online first, a digital predator in the shadows. Lila's feed was a shrine to fleeting pleasures, sun-kissed selfies with anonymous men, captions dripping with faux empowerment. "Living my truth," one read, posted the day after the affair went public. Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to unleash a torrent of vitriol, but no, that was too easy. Revenge demanded patience, a scalpel's precision. Months blurred into a haze of calculated isolation. Elena quit her job at the library, the place where she'd once curated stories of love and loss, now too tainted by memories of recommending romance novels to Mark. She sold their home, his half included, the proceeds funneled into a nondescript account, and moved to a cramped apartment on the city's edge, where the walls were thin and the neighbors' arguments a grim soundtrack to her plotting. Sleep evaded her. Instead, she pored over Lila's life like a detective unraveling a crime. Private investigators weren't cheap, but Elena's savings, painstakingly built over 2 decades of frugality, became her arsenal. She learned Lila had a history. Bounced checks, a string of exes left in financial ruin, a mother disowned for the same reckless hunger. The burden gnawed at her, a constant ache behind her eyes. Nights found her pacing the linoleum floor, fists clenched until her nails drew blood. Why her? Why now? She'd whisper to the empty room, the injustice a living thing coiled in her gut. Justice, she told herself, wasn't about courts or custody. It was about stripping away the illusions they'd all clung to. But doubt crept in during the quiet hours, when exhaustion peeled back her armor. What if revenge turned her into the monster? She saw it in the mirror, hollow cheeks, eyes like storm clouds. Her sister, Maria, noticed first during a rare visit. "Elena, you're fading away. This anger, it's eating you alive." Maria's hand on her shoulder felt like pity, and Elena recoiled, the touch igniting fresh fury. "You don't understand. He destroyed us." She laughed while she did it. Maria left with tears in her eyes, their bond fraying like old rope. Elena pushed others away too, old friends who whispered about moving on, her aging parents who begged her to visit. Isolation was her armor, but it chafed, leaving raw wounds. Driven by the fire, her decisions sharpened to lethal edges. She started a blog, anonymous and venomous, titled The Other Woman, Unmasked. Posts dissected Lila's life in surgical detail, fabricated debts exposed as truth, lovers' tales woven from PI reports into damning narratives. Views climbed, shares multiplied, and soon Lila's perfect facade cracked. Job offers dried up. Her Instagram followers dwindled to echoes. Elena watched from afar, a thrill coiling in her chest like smoke. But the cost mounted. Her health faltered, migraines that blurred her vision, a cough that lingered like regret. At a coffee shop, she overheard two women gossiping about that sad divorcee who's gone off the rails. Humiliation flushed her skin, an echo of that rainy night. Torn between the sweet nectar of destruction and the hollow pit it carved in her, Elena slammed her fist on the table, scattering sugar packets. "They deserve it," she hissed to no one, but the words tasted like ash. Mark, meanwhile, spiraled in his own hell. Whispers reached Elena through mutual acquaintances. He'd taken to drinking, his promotion at the firm evaporating under the scandal's shadow. Lila had vanished after the first wave of online backlash, ghosting him with a curt text, "Too much drama." Elena laughed, a brittle sound, imagining his confusion. But seeing him at a grocery store, thinner, gray at the temples, stirred something vicious. She followed him home, parked across the street, and watched him fumble keys at the door. In that moment, justice felt like a siren's call, destruction a lover's embrace. She could end it now, a slashed tire, an anonymous tip to his boss. Her hand trembled on the wheel, the line between avenger and villain blurring. "For us," she murmured, the ghost of their life flashing. Honeymoons in the rain, her hand on his during silent grief. But the memory fueled the hate, not softened it. She drove away, the plan solidifying. Expose them fully, watch them burn. As the year turned, the pursuit reshaped her entirely. Friends became collateral. Maria stopped calling after Elena accused her of disloyalty for attending Mark's birthday party. Elena's reflection showed a stranger, gaunt, unyielding. The blog hit a milestone, 10,000 hits, and Lila's name trended locally, her face plastered on forums as homewrecker of the year. Elena's heart raced with dark triumph, but sleep brought dreams of chains, her own wrists bound by the very rage she'd unleashed. The people around her scattered like leaves in a gale. Her landlady evicted her for disturbing the peace, after a late-night rant echoed through the vents. Alone, truly alone, Elena forged ahead, the burden a crown of thorns she wore with grim pride. Revenge wasn't just a path, it was her pulse, her purpose. And she would see it through, no matter the ruins left in her wake. 2 years into the abyss, Elena's life had calcified into a ritual of retribution. The apartment was gone. She now squatted in a derelict motel on the outskirts, paying in cash from odd jobs, delivering flyers for shady lawyers, the irony a bitter pill. Her blog evolved into a network, anonymous tipsters feeding her dirt on cheaters nationwide, but Lila and Mark remained her North Star. The weight of it all pressed like an iron yoke. Decisions once made in love now filtered through vengeance's lens. Grocery runs became stakeouts. Phone calls to her parents devolved into interrogations about Mark's whereabouts. "He's suffering, Elena. Isn't that enough?" her mother pleaded over a crackling line. "Enough?" The word ignited an inferno. "Suffering is mercy. They took everything. I'll take their souls." The pursuit's tendrils snaked into every corner, alienating what little remained of her world. Her nephew, little Tomas, once her joy, now flinched at her visits, sensing the storm in her eyes. "Auntie, why are you always mad?" he'd ask, his small hand slipping from hers. Elena forced a smile, but inside, the question clawed. Was this justice, or a plague she inflicted on the innocent? Maria's final straw came during a confrontation at a family funeral. Elena's uncle, gone too soon from a heart attack, Elena irrationally blamed on the family's divided loyalties. "You've become poison," Maria spat, tears carving tracks through her makeup. "Look what it's done to you, to us." Elena's retort was a slap of words. "You side with him? After what they did?" Maria walked away, the rift a chasm. Elena stood alone in the cemetery, rain mingling with the dirt on her shoes, torn between the intoxicating rush of isolation's purity and the gnawing void it bred. Destruction whispered promises of power, justice a mirage shimmering just beyond reach. She chose the blade, always the blade. Lila resurfaced like a specter, traced through a PI's diligence to a dingy bar in the next state. waitressing under an alias. Elena drove through the night, the highway a vein pulsing with her fury. The turning point came unbidden, not in kindness, but in a brutal truth unearthed en route. A final report from the investigator. Lila hadn't targeted Mark out of malice alone. She'd been fleeing an abusive ex, the affair a desperate grasp at escape. Photos showed bruises hidden under makeup. Texts pleading for help Mark had ignored once the thrill faded. And Mark? His own secrets spilled, affairs before Lila, alibis fabricated with colleagues. The injustice deepened, not softened. It revealed their betrayal as a pattern, a rot Elena had enabled through blind devotion. In a roadside diner, grease-slicked and fluorescent lit, she stared at the dossier, hands shaking. They were always monsters, she murmured, the unexpected truth a spark to her pyre. Questioning flickered. Would ending them fill the void, or widen it? The waitress's sympathetic glance, mistaking her tremor for cold, nearly broke her. But no, peace was a lie for the weak. Revenge was her truth, raw and unyielding. The climax brewed in a seedy motel much like her own, where Lila now holed up. Elena waited in the shadows, heart a war drum. Mark arrived first, drawn by a forged letter promising reconciliation, Elena's bait, laced with Lila's alias. He knocked, voice muffled through the door. Lila? It's me. We need to talk. The door cracked, and Elena struck, slipping in behind him like smoke. The room reeked of stale smoke and despair. Lila froze mid-sentence, recognition dawning in her widened eyes. You, she breathed, backing against the wall. Mark whirled, face ashen. Elena? How? The confrontation erupted, words as weapons. 20 years, Elena snarled, voice a whip crack. You threw it away for this? For her. Mark stammered apologies, hands raised like a supplicant, but Elena's laugh was ice. She unveiled the evidence, recordings of his lies, screenshots of Lila's taunts to friends, the blog's archive doxing their every sin. Lila lunged for her phone, but Elena was faster, pinning her wrist with a grip honed by endless rage. You laughed that night. Did you know I'd hear it in my nightmares? Tears streaked Lila's face, not remorse, but fear, and Elena savored it, the humiliation reversed in a torrent. Mark begged, please, I love you still, but the words curdled her blood. She revealed the final twist, the PI's bomb, Mark's embezzlement from the firm, funneled to Lila's debts. One call, and you're both done. Prison for you, oblivion for her. Torn in that electric instant, Elena hovered on the precipice. Justice screamed for the call, destruction for something bloodier. A knife from her pocket glinted in the lamplight. Their pleas blended into a cacophony, mirrors of her own shattered cries. The burden peaked, a supernova of hate and hollow triumph. You made me this, she whispered, dialing the anonymous tip line. Sirens wailed distantly as she slipped out, the door clicking shut on their downfall. No redemption, no mercy, only the cold satisfaction of chains forged in her fire. In the aftermath, Elena vanished into the city's underbelly, a ghost unbound. The news clips she glimpsed in passing confirmed it. Arrests, scandals, lives in tatters. The cost etched deep, familial graves unmarked, her youth a casualty, but she carried it like a trophy. Revenge hadn't healed. It had hollowed, reshaping her into a force unchained. Yet in the quiet, as she plotted her next hunt, a dark clarity emerged. The true power lay not in letting go, but in wielding the scars as swords. Vengeance was her legacy, eternal and unrepentant. The price of vengeance. In the end, revenge carves deeper than any wound inflicted, transforming the avenger into the very shadow they sought to banish. A relentless cycle where victory tastes forever of ashes and isolation. Moral of the story. Revenge devours the soul it seeks to avenge, leaving only echoes of the life it claimed to protect.